Hey guys, it's Brad with Arborview Properties. So has this been you? Have you been burned by another investor who put your property under contract and bailed out of the contract? We're over here next to one of our construction sites here, and it's happening a lot right now. Tons and tons and tons and tons and tons. I'm hearing it throughout the industry. The deal attrition rate, which is basically the number of houses you put under contract versus what you actually have to terminate, is really, really high right now. And why is that high? Because the market is changing as we speak. The market is currently turning and people are sort of freaking out and prices are going down. And as a result, investors are being more cautious than ever. So what does that mean? Well, a lot of investors out here who fix and flip houses, the vast majority of them purchase houses from wholesalers. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means, and this is in the last few years back after the market crash, they were buying everything off the MLS because there was foreclosures galore and REO properties and all that. But right now, the vast majority of people who fix and flip houses like you see on TV purchase their homes from wholesalers. So what is a wholesaler if you don't know? That's somebody who basically is just wholesaling a property, kind of like a grocery wholesaler. They buy the property straight from the farmer and then they sell them to the grocery stores, right? That's where that comes from. Well, in real estate, there are wholesalers too, which essentially buy properties from sellers and then they resell them to other investors. We at Arborview, we wholesale some houses. We also fix and flip houses, and we do rental properties. So we do all of them. So our exit strategies are different depending on the type of property. But there are a lot of companies out there who are one-trick ponies, and all they do is wholesale houses. Well, what are the wholesalers running into right now? They are putting properties under contract with sellers, and then their buyers, who are fix and flippers, are being extra cautious about what they're paying and what they're buying properties for. So they are not able to sell the properties to the other investor for what they thought they could. So then they either have to go back to the seller, which is someone you, such as yourself, and ask for a price reduction, or they terminate their contract altogether. So if you've had an investor come back and ask for a price reduction from you, or they've terminated your contract altogether, then that's probably what's happening. It actually happened to us recently on a property we had bought and cleaned up just a little bit and listed it out on the MLS. We decided we weren't going to do a big rehab on this property just because it really wasn't in that bad a shape. And we listed it out on the MLS sort of as is, but we cleaned it up a little bit. And we had it under contract with an investor within the first day on the market. And then the day before closing, that investor bailed out on us and left us hanging at the closing table. I already owned the property, so I just put it back out on the market again. So that's happening a lot right now. And what's happening is sellers are being promised way more than what's realistic. So if you have a bunch of offers on the table, I want you to take a look at who you're dealing with. Do some research in the company you're dealing with. Ask them for deeds, copies of deeds for properties they've purchased. A lot of these wholesale companies out there just assign all of their contracts. So when it comes time to closing, they basically assign their contract to another investor in exchange for a fee. Again, that's perfectly legal. Nothing wrong with that. Every contract is assignable unless it says it's not assignable. So what does that mean? Well, that means that their name is not on any closing statements. Their name is not on any deeds. If you were to search their company name in the deed records, you will see that they never existed on any deeds. Well, at Arborview, we buy all of our properties. We do assign, occasionally we'll assign stuff. And a lot of times when I assign stuff, I'm actually just assigning it from one of my LLCs to another one of my LLCs. So for instance, if I get a property on contract and I decide I want to keep it as a rental property, I will just assign the contract over to my other LLC over here that I hold all of my rental properties in and just send it over there, right? So you can't see assignments in public record, but if you could, that's what you'd see. Most of our assignment activity is just me assigning it to my other LLC that I own. So, but a lot of these companies are assigning it out to other investors in exchange for an assignment fee. And that's totally legal. It happens in the marketplace. There's nothing wrong with it. It happens all the time. But what happens is a lot of these investors are misleading sellers and getting you to sign a contract at one price, and then they can't perform, and then they're coming back to you and either asking for a price reduction or they're terminating their contract altogether. We're also seeing a lot of investors getting cold feet right now in the market and maybe they offered too much money because they got caught up in the exuberance of all the competition. But really, a lot of the competition out there is just noise, and they're not actually real players, and they're not actually going to buy the house. And then they contract it, they get in a bidding war, which this happens a lot in bidding wars. And if you're doing a bidding war on your house, you might run into this problem where in the exuberance of the bidding war, you get one guy that offers way more than the other people, and you go with that guy, and then he leaves you hanging at the closing table, and now you're stuck and you're back to square one, and you got to go back under contract with somebody else. Maybe you call the other investors back. Maybe you're a little bit embarrassed, and you are embarrassed by the whole situation, so you go to plan B. I don't know what your plan B is, but you try something else. So that's why we're always following up with sellers and asking them if their contract closed. A lot of times they'll sell us, oh, well, I've got it sold to another investor, but really they're just under contract with another investor. So in this case, we check to make sure that they've sold, and we're always going to check in with you and make sure everything's doing okay. Because in our transactions, we actually care about the sellers and resolving their situation, whether we buy the house or not. We want to make sure that their situation is resolved. And we want to make sure that they're happy with the whole situation. So if you've been victim of one of these investors who bailed out on you, I apologize about that. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. That's terrible. And it happens to the best of us. But if you want a real offer from a real investor who is going to perform on the contract and do what they say they're going to do, please call us. You might find that our offer might be a little bit less than the other guy, but I can guarantee you that we're going to close on the contract compared to the other guy, because I try, if at all possible, to close on every deal for the price that I said I was going to buy it for. I can count on one hand the number of times in the last 5 years that I have had to renegotiate a contract or terminate a contract in the last 5 years. Out of hundreds of deals, 5 times. Well, maybe it's actually, no, I'm sorry. Two hands. It's 6 times. So 6 times in the last 6 years, out of hundreds of deals that we purchased, I've had to either renegotiate or terminate a contract altogether. A few times it was because there were some major foundation issues that we discovered. Actually, there was a deal just this year that we didn't notice this major foundation issue. There was a bunch of junk in the basement, and we just couldn't see the foundation walls when we were there. And once the house got all cleaned out, we noticed it. We're like, oh, wow, this is big money. This is big cracks. And we did have to ask for a reduction. The seller didn't want to reduce, so we just terminated our contract. But we were still in our due diligence period. Also, one thing to look out is look for investors who have a really, really long due diligence period. I'm talking like 30, 45-day due diligence period. That's crazy. That's too long. Our standard due diligence is 10 days. And if you're really concerned about due diligence, we will lower that due diligence period to a shorter time period. But I, as the owner of the company, Brad, I need to come out and actually walk through the property just to confirm the numbers, make sure everything's right. If I've gone through and looked at it, I've even done zero due diligence before to make a seller feel more comfortable that we're not going to go back on our word and do something different. So if you do have a house you want to sell and you want to sell to a real legitimate investor who's not going to leave you hanging at the closing table, that's us. We've got many years of experience. We're an honest company. We try to be honest and do the right thing. So click on the link below in the description. It'll take you to our website. You can fill out the form, or you can call us at 770-810-5715. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.